Today, I'm upgrading this keyboard for MKBHD. It's one of the best sounding keyboards I've ever built, so let me show you the 5 key upgrades I did. Starting by upgrading the switches. I already built a keyboard for Marquez once, so I had a solid idea of what he likes.
And listen to... It's good. It's good stuff. I really like this.
So I chose to use these ones right here for the following reasons. These were specifically designed to be a better version of the classic Cherry MX Brown, the most well-known but not necessarily the best light tactile switch. That's why these pewter switches are ideal. But for them to sound and feel their best, I needed to lube and film them. Doing this for every single switch can take a long time, but it's always worth it. Done. Manually lubing each switch will make them feel much smoother and sound nicer compared to how they are out of the box. And on top of that, I like lubing the springs because sometimes they generate a very distracting metallic spring pinging sound, and we don't want that. Also, adding switch films between the top and bottom housings helps reduce switch wobble, which makes the overall typing experience more consistent. Done. I'll install the switches in a second, but before that, I need to do the second and most important mod: fixing the awful stock stabilizers on this keyboard. 99% of keyboards suffer from this problem. The longer keys, such as the spacebar, shift, and backspace, need stabilizers to stabilize the keys, but they are often loose and rattle around, which sounds pretty bad even if they do factory lubing as they did here. Doing it manually will always be better, so that's what I'm doing here. On top of that, I'm replacing the stock stabilizers with the TX AP stabilizers because of one big reason. They are straight up better and more reliable in the long run in every single way. Most other sets I've tried in the past will start to rattle again after some time and require additional lubing, which I can't do once I send this keyboard to Marquez. Also, just to be double safe, I added some band-aids below the wires to secure them in place and prevent the stabilizer from ticking or moving around too much. Okay, let's see how it sounds. Nice. By the way, this is a Keychron Q1 Pro, and I chose it because it's one of the very few keyboards that ticks all of the boxes to fulfill the very particular set of needs that Marquez has. It needs to be wireless, backlit, needs arrow keys, and most importantly, must have and function raw with macOS media icons. This means it must be at least a 75% or a 10 keyless keyboard. Keychron keyboards are not necessarily the best of the best out there, but they are pretty good value. And there's a reason why this is the only keyboard that I could use for this build. You will see what I mean in a second, but first, let's reassemble the keyboard. Time for the third mod, which involves putting some thick tape between the top and bottom metal case to avoid direct metal-to-metal contact. This fixes one of the biggest problems the OG Keychron Q1 had, sounding very hollow and having case ping caused by the top and bottom metal cases hitting each other. After that comes the fourth mod, which is to add some extra foam in between the different layers of the keyboard to make it sound nicer. This includes replacing the stock plate foam for one of higher quality and adding PE foam in between the PCB and switches. I'm adding plate foam as it works as a sound dampener and I don't want this office-oriented keyboard to be too loud. And PE foam gives keyboards a marbly sound, which I think is pretty nice. It's part of how I made this extremely cheap $19 keyboard sound like this in a previous video. Oh, I almost forgot about the extra case foam. This last piece replaces the stock sheet of plastic that was pre-installed on the board to reduce hollowness and dampen the sound a bit more. By the way, I was originally gonna use a much higher end board for the build, but things didn't work out, so I had to change my plans. And in an attempt to make this look more than just a Keychron, I tried to add a personalized touch inspired by Marquez Porsche 911. The idea is to add some glossy black accents to the matte black keyboard case.
I love that it is a contrast between satin black and glossy black.
If I manage to do this properly, it should look pretty good. Let's see how this goes. And all I need to do is remove this. Hey, that looks good! Wow, I was not expecting this to look so good. Time for the fifth mod, new keycaps. This is where things got rather complicated, and there are three parts to this story. The easy part was to find a high quality black and red keycap set that matched the MKBHD theme. The harder part was that it needed to have macOS modifier keys. The almost impossible part was that Marques wants the macOS function row media icons in the keycap legends. This last one is a deal breaker for him, which shattered my plans because I thought I had the perfect keycaps. Ever since I first built him a keyboard back in 2021, I've been tracking down suitable GMK keycap sets for this follow-up build. And this was my plan. I narrowed everything down to two options: GMK Dark to fit the matte black everything theme, or GMK Redline to fit the classic MKBHD color scheme. But neither set has the macOS function row icons, which means that there's a high likelihood that if I leave it as it is, Marques won't use the keyboard. They have tons of incredible keyboards in their studio, but as far as I know, he only uses Keychrons because of the native macOS support.
I am still a 3-input kind of guy with the keyboard, which is a Keychron Q1.
When he started using the first keyboard I built for him, I briefly spoke with him to gather more info for this build. But I missed this detail. I knew that there was a preference for keycaps with media icons, but the other one I built didn't have them, and he used it for well over a year, so it took me completely by surprise when I was casually talking with Andrew, the studio manager at the MKBHD studio, and he told me that this was a deal breaker. So I had to change my plans. I considered every single possible option out there, but ultimately, the only way to get the perfect keycap set was to request a quote from a manufacturer and make my very own keycap set. Which I did consider, and it's technically doable, but I was already slightly over budget, so I had to come up with a different solution. Here's the plan. Listen to this.
But I still realize that I use the brightness and media controls a lot also on the Magic Keyboard. So having those just not work at all was kind of a bummer. So I really just want a specifically macOS compatible one.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at.
Media and brightness keys are the two main things he uses. So if I solve for that, I think we are good. The main reason why I ended up choosing the Keychron Q1 Pro is because the inclusion of a customizable knob. And also, it's the new and upgraded version of the same keyboard he's been using lately, so if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I remapped the knob to work as volume up, volume down, and click to play pause. And if you hold down the function key and then turn the knob, it adjusts the brightness. It's not perfect, but I think it works. By the way, every single macOS shortcut still works perfectly fine. It's just that you need to memorize them because the media shortcut legends aren't available on the keycaps themselves. Okay, one more thing, and it's time for the sound test. There are two reasons why I invested so much time and effort into this build. The first one is because I want to thank Marques for what he did. He watched and shared one of my very first videos when I had only 700 subscribers, which was completely unexpected and extremely helpful for such a tiny YouTube channel such as mine at the time. I have no idea if Marques will ever see this keyboard or watch this video, but
the one thing I'll say that I like about my desk a lot right now is the Keychron K2. I've gotten really into mechanical keyboards, and listen to, it's good. It's good stuff. I really like this.
And the second reason is the same one as why I made that first video. I simply like tinkering with tech and making cool videos, so it was a no-brainer. But this time there was a bit more pressure now that I knew that a YouTuber that I look up to and watched for over 10 years was gonna watch this. So I better deliver. And hopefully I did. If you want to see more high effort content, consider subscribing, and once again, Thank you for watching.